Frei Beto, a Brazilian theologian, says that silence is an invaluable wealth and we are losing it. Our society is noisy in the smallest details. There are people unable to hear their inner silence. They find it difficult to love your neighbor as yourself. Who does not like has resistance to like others, and they take out their inner unease. It is in the silence that I can discover an other that is not me. And yet, it is in the silence that we find our true identity as beloved children of God. Today, many practice meditation in search of silence. They want to dive into the well and drink from the source of living waters. But there are those who no longer learn to close their eyes to see better. They bow without reverence. They kneel without praying. Meditate without contemplating. They ignore that loneliness is an exercise in solidarity. They do not listen to the mystery, nor listen to the invisible. However, more people are making the experience of letting God speak in them, just as the beloved enjoys the invisible and yet enveloping presence of the beloved. Silence, then, is the raw material of love.
Having gently settled yourself in a seated or lying down position, the invitation is to sincerely explore for yourself whether you are really here or not. Are you in your body, or are you oblivious, only aware of parts of it? When I ask you, are you in your body? I mean, are you completely filling it? I'm interested to know whether you are in your feet, or you just have feet. Do you live in them? Or are they just things you use when you walk? Are you in yourself, in your belly, this belly? Or do you just vaguely know that you have one? Perhaps it's just for food. Are you really here, in your hands? Or do you just move them from a distance? The question is, are you present in this moment in your cells, inhabiting and filling this body? If you aren't in your body, what significance is there in your experience in this moment? Are you preparing so that you can be here in the future? Are you setting up conditions by saying to yourself, when such and such happens, I'll have time. I'll be here then. And if you are not here now, what is it that you're saving yourself for? The invitation is to be here in these moments of sharing, fully alive to the life here, living through this body, your body. You might bring the focus of your attention into those feet. Again, noticing what you notice. There's no right way for you to feel. Simply noticing what you notice. As you hold awareness of the feet, you might bring attention into the hands, awakening to whatever sensations arise as you arrive here. Are you here with them, in this moment? Can you be gently curious of what you notice? Attentive to sensations. Aware of your feet and your hands. Can you gently guide your attention to the belly or the chest? Just noticing its gentle movement. Just being here for this very in-breath and this out-breath. The closer we come to noticing these physical sensations that are occurring constantly, the deeper within ourselves we arrive, the conscious mind quietening itself, just breathing in and aware of breathing out. Aware of your feet, your hands, and the breath here at the belly or the chest. Bringing your focus to rest lightly within the shoulders. Noticing what you notice as you just allow this body to be as you find it, without trying to change anything. Being here for it, with it, alongside it, compassionately. Aware of your feet, your hands, your breathing, these shoulders, and bringing the attention to just rest ever so gently, just in the forehead, aware of this space. Noticing any sensations here. Aware of your feet, your hands, the movement of your breath, your shoulders, and the forehead. Breathing in with this body, breathing out with this body, your body. And as we settle, into the sensations that are arising, noticing what we notice. The mind can quieten, and we can more easily open our hearts to everything that there is to receive, to hold it compassionately. And to move forward in wise action. And so then, when you feel ready, and if you're comfortable with it, just gently guiding yourself to the end of this short grounding practice. Slowly just beginning to make that transition. So perhaps now taking a deeper, more intentional breath in, filling the lungs, feeling the chest expand, and then aware of that releasing, that letting go. And gently just curling and uncurling the hands, opening the eyes if they've been closed. Just taking a moment to stretch, knowing as you move forward, you are here and in this body.
A poem on silence by Paul Goodman from Speaking and Language. Not speaking and speaking are both human ways of being in the world, and there are kinds and grades of each. There is the dumb silence of slumber or apathy, the sober silence that goes with a solemn animal face, the fertile silence of awareness pasturing the soul whence emerge new thoughts, the alive silence of alert perception ready to say, this, the musical silence that accompanies absorbed activity, the silence of listening to another speak, catching the drift and helping them be clear, the noisy silence of resentment and self-recrimination, loud and subvocal speech, but sullen to say it. Baffled silence, the silence of peaceful accord with other persons or communion with the cosmos.
Welcome to our sacred space time together, where we will be looking at the very current issue of Black Lives Matter and the significance of silence. The poem that Monica has just read describes different types of silence, some positive and some negative. The murder of George Floyd has triggered something deep in our being and enabled many people to come together in solidarity to break silence and have a voice. And right at the start of this time together, we want to name the negative silence that colludes and allows evil and injustice to go unchallenged, and be aware of it in ourselves and in our society. However, we want to go beyond this and look at the positive power of silence that leads to action or is in itself action. In the play or film Man for All Seasons, Thomas More refuses to publicly support Henry VIII's divorce to Catherine of Aragon. Henry rages against Thomas's silence by saying, "Your silence speaks volumes across this nation." Similarly, Jesus' silence before the Sanhedrin before his death was a refusal to collude in the schemings of the religious and political elite. Silence can indeed be deafening. The mystics believed that it was in silence where we would most readily encounter God, and it is in silence where we can process our innermost thoughts and feelings, which then enable us to act compassionately and justly from a place deep within us. Thomas Merton says, "The contemplative life must provide an area, a space of liberty, of silence, in which possibilities are allowed to surface and new choices beyond routine choice become manifest. It should create a new experience of time, not as a stopgap, stillness, but as an open space, not a time to be filled or an untouched space to be conquered or violated, but a space which can enjoy its own potentialities and hopes, its own presence to itself, one's own time, but not to be dominated by one's own ego and its demands. Hence it is time to be open to others, a compassionate time." Adrian is now going to talk about different ways in which we can approach silence.
Perhaps we could say there are 4 ways to approach silence. The first is that silence is a place to meet God. Had Moses not led his flocks to Midian, he would not have encountered the one who was in the bush. That's a saying of Abba Poman, one of the desert fathers and mothers. In other words, had Moses not been at the end of his tether and out in a wild place and been in that deep contemplation that space engenders in you, he would not have met the one who said to him, "I've heard the cry of my people, and I'm sending you to release them." So that silence is a place to meet the God who is the ground of our being, who holds all things in being, to meet that love that makes the world turn, the love that can change everything. The second way of looking at silence is connected to that. It's the idea that in silence we meet ourselves, that silence is like a mirror held up to us. And that could be quite uncomfortable. Blaise Pascal apparently said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." By man he means all human beings, although I think it may be appropriate that especially men. Our inability to sit quietly in a room alone, to hold that mirror up to ourselves, and to experience what we're experiencing deeply in our bodies, in our emotions, in our thinking, to rather than react, to hold what we are feeling and give it space. So to meet God is to meet yourself. Love your neighbour as you love yourself, Jesus says. That's quite an injunction, quite a challenge. Another way of approaching silence is a form of remembering. We all know about the Remembrance Sunday and the 2-minute silence on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month that ended the sound of gunfire across Europe after the First World War. A time in which we remember those who have fallen. We will not forget them, we say. We will remember. And there are many times when we have those moments of silence to remember. They happen before football matches. We have individual times when we want to be silent and remember an event like the Hillsborough disaster or Grenfell Tower, or a personal event, someone we were close to who we've lost. And that remembering makes them present in our silence, makes them come alive again and be with us in some way and speak with us in some way. So that silence of remembering, and the word that Jesus used for remembering, remember me when you do this in memory of me, is anamnesis, which means a remembering that makes present. From his experience of Passover, where they remembered the events of liberation, they were then inserted into that memory. They eat and drink in the home and celebrate that freedom, and it becomes their own. And so Jesus says, do this in memory of me. And that remembering becomes present and alive now. And we can be part of that death and resurrection that Jesus went through. The final way of looking at silence is as an act of protest. Ian mentioned earlier the silence of Thomas More that spoke volumes across the nation. I've been really moved lately to see Premier League footballers take the knee in solidarity, and that comes from an American footballer who did the same thing a couple of years ago, who was vilified for doing it. Silence is a powerful form of protest. The image that comes to mind when I think about this is Dr. Martin Luther King and the civil rights protesters in 1965 marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge between Selma and Montgomery, non-violently asserting their right to vote in the southern states, which was denied them, and challenging the segregationalist policies that were being pursued. They walk with huge dignity and power in silence. And they are faced with the array of police and even the National Guard with batons and tear gas and guns, and they march into the teeth of that. Those marches changed America. They changed the world. And although the challenge of racism still exists, those marches have become a touch point, a cornerstone into how to oppose this kind of oppression, how to stand up in your body, in your soul, and silently protest that this will not be done in my name. And they attracted a huge group of white people who came from all over America and all over the world to stand in solidarity against this terrible injustice. So silence can be a deep-seated way of expressing solidarity, of challenging, even with our bodies, the terrible effects of racism. All these four approaches to silence engender in us compassion. And I would say compassion is divine. It says in the scripture that Jesus did not cling to equality with God, but became as we are, and was humbly yet, even to death on a cross. In other words, God experienced compassion for us, and that experience led God to become human in Jesus, and to experience the death of a political criminal, to be in solidarity with us. We're now going to watch a video by a black dance troupe in reaction to the murder of George Floyd and everything that has gone on since then. And we will see these people responding in their bodies in all kinds of ways. And we invite you to watch this and for all of us to feel in our bodies how we react to what we see, and to hold in prayer our physical, emotional, intellectual reaction. As an introduction to the video, I'd like to read a quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates from a book called Between the World and Me. But all our phrasing, race relations, racial chasm, racial justice, racial profiling, white privilege, even white supremacy, serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience, that it dislodges brains, blocks airways, rips muscles, extracts organs, cracks bones, breaks teeth. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions all land with great violence upon the body.
We are together, coming together. When we stand together, move together in this moment, we are pointing toward our ways to express and show truth and love. When patience slows and circumstances, hatred, try to pull us down, confusion creeps in, trying to mute our voices without knowing who we really are. But we are more than just what they think they see. So here it is, how we need to and must show you through our own eyes. We are witnesses, living in it and through it, and we were born from this. Our heritage, our past is built on a perspective some have skewed or tried to skew. But our train, this journey forward will not slow or stop. Our mission is to push, to learn, to lift, to teach, to encourage, to build, to carry, to support, to bridge, and to raise our communities. You, growing your hearts and feeding your souls. Our hearts hurt now, yes, we are exhausted. Our hearts are tired now, weary and worn, but through it all, through it then more than 60 years ago, and through it now, we persevere, always moving, loving, creating, sharing, even with our heavy hearts. This is hard for you and all of us, but our path is set, and we are not holding back. We are not giving in. We will continue to share. Our voices ring loudly through our body's language. Our voices ring loudly through our body's language. Our voices ring loudly through our body's language. And when our hearts break, we get up. When our hearts break, we stand up. And when our hearts break, we dance. We dance, we dance, we dance, we dance, we dance, we dance.
Our voices ring loudly through our body's language is a repeated phrase through this powerful video as the dancers express their emotions and feelings through their bodies. It combines strength, determination, solidarity, and compassion to fight injustice. We are now going to have 8 minutes 46 seconds of silence as an act of solidarity to stand alongside those both past and present who have suffered from racism in whatever form, whether institutional, structural, or personal. Adrian has already outlined some of the ways in which we can use silence. We can use it to meet with God. We can use it to meet our deepest selves, to hold a mirror up to ourselves and process our own thoughts and feelings. This might involve expressing it through the movement of our own bodies, or through sitting still or lying still. We can use it to remember those who have suffered. We can use it to confess our own silence and collusion. We can use it to see what action arises within us that we might want to take. This action may not necessarily mean direct action or protest. It may involve becoming more aware, reading a particular book, or watching a film or documentary. Most of all, this silence is an act of solidarity with those who have suffered, and an opening up of our hearts and minds so that we may empathize more deeply with those who have suffered. In the silence we can hold the pain of our world and seek healing in our own bodies and also healing in the body of the world. So take a little bit of time just to think and prepare yourself for this silence. It may not be an easy silence, but I think it is a silence that is needed.
I'm not a racist. I don't see color. I see the person. How many times have we heard or even said these words? Obioma Ogola, a British actor and writer, says, well, if you don't or won't see color, how then can you be an effective ally against racial injustice? If you don't see color, how can you hear if somebody is making a racist comment, or if your colleague is giving your black co-worker a hard time? We need people to see color, because it's not enough being non-racist. We must be anti-racist. We must stand alongside those who on a daily basis are discriminated against because of the color of their skin. Racism is never benign, conventional, or acceptable. It is racism that resulted in the slavery, Holocaust, apartheid, and was responsible for ethnic cleansing. So we need you to see color. We need the world to see color. Only then can we stand up and confront together the evil forces of racism in our society. We cannot be neutral on this issue because Black lives matter too.
A blessing for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into ploughshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain.